Every now and again, people are still surprised that I personally use the self-journal, but I always tell people I created this product because I wanted it to exist. So Best Self, the company as it exists now, is not what I first envisioned it. I wanted to create this product so I had it in my life, and it was going to be very expensive to print a one-off version of it. So then we kickstarted it, and that turned into a whole thing. But it all started from me creating a framework to achieve more in my day that I wanted to exist. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through how I personally use a journal, and maybe it'll give you some ideas. You'll see it's not perfect. I don't have great handwriting all the time, but it works for me. So here's some ways that I use it to get more done and live an intentional life. So just like you, I'm not perfect. So there is some days that I miss the self-journal, whether I leave it at home or, life gets in the way. But to me, it's more important that the majority of the time I use the self-journal. And the days that I don't use it, I often realize that I'm more reactive than I would be if I'm using the journal, because I write down everything I'm doing throughout the day. And if I don't have the journal, my time just goes into the digital abyss. So it's like, it just disappears when I get to the end of the day. Whereas when I have the journal and I have a physical representation of, okay, here's what I did between this time and this time, it keeps me accountable to myself. So in the morning, after I do my morning routine, I plan my day. So I plan the first thing I'm going to do that day, which is often the most important, but also the most draining task. And to explain this, I try to manage my energy and not always my time. So there's some tasks that give me energy, and then there's some tasks that are draining, yet they are important. So if I do the draining tasks first thing in the morning, that are also important, I get the hard thing done at a time when I have the most energy and I'm feeling like I have the highest willpower. Whereas if I leave those until last thing in the day, don't you know it, they get pushed to the next day. And if I don't do it in the morning, they'll get pushed to the next day. So I know myself, and this is just how I work. I do the hardest thing first, the most draining, and then in the afternoon when I'm kind of in those hours where I don't really want to do anything, it's like between 2 and 4, I do a creative task. I'll do design work, I'll do something that doesn't require a lot of brain power, but it's still important, yet I know that after I get done with it, I'll actually have more energy. In the today's targets, I plan out the 3 things that if I do nothing else, if I do these things, I'll win the day. So once I do that, I'll mark them in my timeline to make sure that I have time to do this. The reason I do this is because for years, I would create these epic to-do lists that even if everything went perfectly, literally perfect in my day, it would still not nearly be enough to do the things I used to put on my list. So if I put it into my today's targets and then I guesstimate how long I think it will take, then I'll put that into my timeline, I'll time block it so that I can see visually, okay, there is actually enough time to do this. I'm not setting myself up for failure from the beginning. I also put in meetings, so I'll time block those. If I want to go to the gym, if it's not in here, chances are I'm not going to make it. So anything that I want to be spending my time on, I try to put it in here, because inevitably during the day I'll get distracted, things will come up, and when I look back at my journal, I know exactly what I was supposed to be doing. Another thing I like to do is as things pop into our mind, so I might be in the middle of something and my brain is always looking for problems and trying to figure out what I've been missing. And this is just because it's running on ancient hardware of us being in the jungle, and it's always looking for danger. That is still happening even though we're living in this modern world. So while I'm focused on a task, my brain's like, oh, Cathryn, you have to order that thing from Amazon, remember? And if I just stop doing the thing that I'm doing and go to Amazon, then I don't know where I was. And so instead of me stopping what I'm doing, going to order that very unimportant thing from Amazon, I will write it down on the free space in my journal. And then when I have a pocket of time during the day, I'll do those little things. So that's a way to both take the things that pop up in your brain as things that your brain is presenting to you as a problem, but it's not a problem that you need to solve in that moment. And so I use the flex space for both notes from meetings, for those things that pop into your mind that I don't want to get distracted with, And then for anything that I have to like follow up on or just general notes. So the left-hand side, the structured side, is where I time block, I plan what I want to do that day. And then the right-hand side is just a free space. I'll sketch ideas on there sometimes if I'm, thinking of a product. I'll write things I have to get done that day. I'll put things in there to remind myself. Basically, I use it however I want. In the today's goal section, if I'm working towards a big goal, so say I have a health goal or I have a business goal, I'll write that in there just so that it's priming my mind and keeping it top of mind what it is that I'm working towards. Because sometimes, if days are getting hard or you're struggling, it helps to know what it is that you're doing this for. And then on the bottom of the page, you'll see what will make today great. And the reason that we have that in there is to sort of prime your mind in the beginning of the day to think, okay, how would I show up? What would happen today to make it great? And by just priming your mind to think that way, it's more likely to happen because you know what that looks like. And so if you know, getting lunch with this person will make today great, or having a conversation with this person, or doing this thing, whatever it is for you, if you put that in there and then it happens, then you think of it as a great day. So obviously the daily page is where I spend most of my time, but other places are the habit tracker. So if I'm wanting to track habits, I often do it in the self journal. I've tried every single app known to man, literally. Bet me on that. I've tried everything. And I always fall off the app stuff. And also once I go on my phone, it's like an abyss of my time goes in there. Suddenly there's Instagram, there's everything else. And so I like to have a physical representation of something. So just like it's so much nicer to tick off a to-do on a physical piece of paper than like clicking a button on an app. That's like a scientific revelation that they've had, that people like ticking it off. That's why when we make a list, sometimes we'll put something on there that we've already done just so we can tick it off. That's how good it feels, because that is irrational, but we do it anyway. So before I start my week, I do this thing called the weekly action plan. That's where I download everything in my brain that I have to get done, whether it's work life, personal life, all of those little things that add up and take up your time and mental bandwidth. You want to sit down for 20 minutes and get all of that down on paper. Now, I have a whole video on the weekly action plan. I've been doing it since 2013, and I keep making it a little better and better. But doing this at the start of the week means that you have a list that you can take to your self journal and know exactly what you have to do. So when you come to your weekly planning, you have 3 big objectives. Now, this is not something that you might get done in one time block on one day. It might be throughout the week. These are the things that I want to get done, and you can make sure that you're plotting time to get those things done. There's also a space for events and deadlines, and that's so that whether you have something in the evening or you have a lunch or something you've committed to that you want to be mindful of, you have that in there so that you can plan your work around it. And then there's a space for other tasks and errands, because like life happens and suddenly you're running to pick up a prescription that you didn't think was going to happen. That's where you put that stuff. At the end of the week, a great thing to do is just take a few minutes to reflect on how the week went. Whenever I don't do this for a while and then I start doing it again, my weeks start to go better, because I'm learning from, okay, if we continue to do the same mistake over and over again, our weeks are going to be the same. So nothing changes if nothing changes. So reflect on your week, on your day. It doesn't take very long, but if you start to do that, you'll realize it's kind of like watching your game tapes where you're like, oh, I should have done this better, or maybe I did 4 of these things that are essentially the same task on 4 different days when I could have batched it. So that's the type of thing that you learn as you look back. Another thing we talk about is key relationships. So, as entrepreneurs, as busy people, we are often just getting caught up in the day-to-day. We see people on Instagram and Facebook, but we're not actually hanging out with people. And so I want people to be mindful of, okay, who did I build more connection with this week? Whether it's your partner, whether it's a good friend. Let's make it a habit of being intentional with the people that we want to spend our life with, so that we're actually spending time. We're not just liking something on their Instagram page. That's great and everything, but what am I doing to invest in this relationship? Sometimes, especially now with all the social medias, I fall into this too, is you think you're building up relationships when you're really just spying in on someone's life. So someone sharing something on social media, you feel like, oh, I know this person. Like random people I went to high school with, I know their kids, what they look like, what their names are, but I haven't talked to them in years. And so I want us to be mindful of who we're spending time with or who we're investing in order to not let relationships die, because relationships die when they starve to death from lack of attention until it becomes too awkward to actually reach out again. So don't get to that point. We are the average of the 5 people we spend time with, but spending time means just like investing in the relationship. So this area of the journal is literally just like, who did you talk to this week that is important to you? And if too many weeks in a row go by and you have no one to put in there, that might be an area you want to look at. And then the last part of the weekly review is just saying, okay, how could next week be better? And that could come from your review. It could come from, oh, I'm seeing this person in my life next week. It could come from, I'm on vacation next week, I'm very excited about it. Whatever that looks like, just putting a idea in your mind of what little thing would make next week better. And again, it could be big, it could be small, it could be, I'm gonna plan my meals ahead of time so I don't get overwhelmed when it comes to dinner time and I'm hungry and I just eat whatever is in front of me. So the 13-week bucket list inside of the journal, this is just a way to not actually wait for you to kick the bucket to do it. So whether it's experiences you want to have or people you want to connect with, something that I like to do every quarter is to make a list of the people that I want to invest into the relationship and put the people in here so that if I'm, getting to the, a few weeks in and I'm wondering, oh, I want to, reach out to someone who have I not talked to in a while, I've already thought ahead of like, oh, these are the people that I, want to spend time with or want to invest in the relationship. I should, put some feelers out there. And again, everyone's always busy. So actually being intentional with making the list of people you want to connect with and making plans, it's not that difficult, but it goes a long way, especially for the other person, because you're just doing all the work of, it could be making a reservation for a lunch, but that seems like more work and you're being intentional with reaching out and planning that. So it sounds like a tiny thing, but now more than ever, it's really, really needed and people really appreciate it. The best self benchmark. So if you are feeling, high in one area and low in the other area, often in life, we can't juggle everything all at one time. So I'm not a big fan of this work-life balance, as in work and life should have the same balance. Sometimes, some months and some weeks, your work will take up way more of your time because you have deadlines and you have stuff to prepare for. And then other times it'll be more family and life orientated because you've done the work. And so it's like this ebb and flow of your life. So thinking of this with the best self benchmark is making sure that, if you go through one journal and you have your working career super high and your relationships are low, you can look back on that and think, oh, what should I be doing this time? Like how should I be, there should be an ebb and a flow. If you're constantly working all the time and not putting time into these other areas, you will wake up one day and wonder like, oh, I should have, focused on my health. We all know that when we feel crappy or we get the flu, it's like, oh, all I want to do is be better. And so you want to not just wait until you're sick to look after your health. You want to do it as we go, like small preventative over time will make you much better than if you just take medication when you're sick. So focusing on your health, your finances, your work, your career, your relationships, personal growth, that's a huge area for me personally. Is if I spend too much time like just in work mode or vacation mode, which doesn't happen a ton, but I love learning. And I also realize when I miss it, when I'm too caught up in the work, and I'll sign up for a class or I'll read a book or something like that. And it gives me so many more ideas that I can put into my work or life. But personal growth is a huge one for me. And also as humans, we like to progress. So it's a huge thing for everyone. So make sure that you're focusing on how am I better today than I was yesterday. So the habit tracker, it's where you can track the things that you want to do every day. So if you think of like where you want to be in a few years or the person that you want to be and what you want to have in your life, whether it's the people in your life, the relationships, whatever it is that lights you up, think of the person that you need to become to have all of that in your life. And oftentimes people disconnect the habits that they're doing every day with the person that they want to become, but they actually are the same. So if you're thinking of like, what does the person that has all of this stuff, that has this life that I want, what are they doing every single day? And then figuring out a way to both do the thing and then track it, and not making it a huge commitment. So you're not having to, you don't go like, I'm gonna be super fit, I'm gonna go start going to the gym for 4 hours every single night. That's 45, because that's not something that you're actually going to stick to unless you're way more committed than like 99.9% of people. So what are like small, consistent things that you can do that if you do over time, just like compound interest on your money, will get you to that point? And so once you figure that out, is writing it down and then tracking that you're doing it. And setting yourself up for streaks. So once you build momentum and do it every day, it's gonna really piss you off if you miss a day. So like a month ago, I was doing this 30 for 30, and it's like daily publishing of essays, which was difficult for me to do, but there was one night and it was like 16 days in, and I'd done it every single day. And then I got to the 16th day and I'm just like, I don't have it in me. But I was also sharing them publicly, and I'm like, I don't wanna not do this and give up on this and lose my streak. And that is the only reason I published something that day, was because I didn't wanna break the chain that I'd gotten going. So it doesn't matter if it's something like that or you're just personally motivated, create a system for yourself to make sure that you're consistent with these things. That, if you do it over time, will lead to bigger and better things. You just can't see it in the moment. And then the back of the journal is just the freedom pages. So if something comes up, whether it's coming up with an idea for a product that doesn't just fit on the flexible page, or I'm taking more detailed notes on something, I will just flip to the back to the freedom pages of the self-journal and write in there, because I want to keep it all in one place. I used to have random scraps of paper or different notebooks for different things, and it just didn't work. So this way I can have my daily meeting notes and like idea notes and sketches all in one book. And then of course there's the goal pages. So, you can use this journal with a big goal in mind, or you can just use it with the structure that I kind of talked about in this video. But if I'm working on a goal, so say I have a health goal, this is where I will put in, okay, why do I want this goal? What are my progress milestones? Like, how do I know that I'm on the way? Which is really important for me because it's easy to tell when you get off track. So that's where you put in the progress milestones. Specifically, okay, what are the things I have to hit to get to this goal that I have? And then the critical drivers are essentially the things that you track. So what you put maybe in your habit tracker, these are what you want to be tracking either on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis. And you know that, okay, don't focus on the goal itself, focus on what I have to do tomorrow. Like if you have a health goal, what are you ordering for dinner tonight? Or what are you gonna eat tonight? And it's really like granular, task, action oriented. And then the progress milestones are sort of a metric driven thing. So it could be losing this much weight, or it could be, if it was a marketing goal, it could be this many leads. So it's very like number specific. And the critical drivers are the things that will drive that. So it could be, if you were going to publish a book or write a first draft, it might be write 500 words a day. And the progress milestone might be, 3 chapters completed, for example. And you know that if you keep writing 500 words a day, you will get to that progress milestone, which means you're on your way to your goal. So that's kind of how you want to look at it. And then the critical drivers are what you're looking at every single day, week, and month to make sure you're on track with your goal. So this is a very systematic way of taking a big goal, breaking it down so that you know exactly what you have to do every single day in order to get there. But if you don't have like a specific goal that you're working on, you can also just use the system within the journal to just sort of get into the habit of gratitude in the morning, like planning your day, knowing what a great day looks like, time blocking it, like being intentional with your time. Like this is one of the biggest things I've heard from people is just the idea of tracking where their time is going. They were able to find all these pockets that were otherwise just going onto social media or like just being wasted in ways that they didn't know that they were doing until they started auditing their time by using the self-journal. So that's how I use the self-journal. Yes, it's been almost 6 years now since we put this thing out, but I still use it. And the times when I've fallen off it, I've felt like I've gotten less done. So I always come back to it just because the structure's already here. The structure I know works. So why do I think that I can do better when I, fall off? So I always come back to it for that reason. The structure has worked for thousands of people. We have a flexible space for you to be able to use it however you want. We had another version that was much more structured on both sides, but we got a lot of feedback. And the thing about this is you can still use that structure on the free page if you want, but if you're like me and you want to take notes on meetings or you want to sketch ideas, everything is on one double page spread. And that is how I personally use the self journal to get more done in my day, to hit my goals, and to live a more intentional life. So if that sounds like something that you want, go over to bestself.co/self-journal and you can pick up your own today.